Ellen DeGeneres had hosted countless conversations about love, dating, and relationships throughout her decades-long career, from relationship experts offering advice to singles sharing their romantic struggles, but nothing could have prepared her for the afternoon, when what seemed like a routine interview about modern dating challenges would evolve into one of the most serendipitous and romantically magical moments she had ever witnessed. What started as a discussion about finding love in the digital age became a real-time love story when Ellen realized that her guest's perfect match was sitting just rows away, completely unaware that destiny had brought them to the same studio on the same day. It was a bright Friday afternoon at the Ellen Studios, and the atmosphere was light and hopeful as they prepared for what was scheduled to be an entertaining episode about dating, relationships, and the challenges of finding meaningful connection in modern society. Ellen, wearing a cheerful coral blazer over white pants, was looking forward to interviewing Marcus Thompson, a 32-year-old graphic designer and hopeless romantic whose humorous dating mishaps and earnest search for true love had gained him a following on social media and made him a relatable voice for single people everywhere. Marcus's story was exactly the kind of charming and optimistic narrative that Ellen loved to feature, someone who had maintained faith and love despite countless disappointing dates, who approached relationships with both humor and sincerity, and who had become an advocate for authentic connection in an era of superficial digital interactions. According to his preliminary materials, Marcus had been single for 3 years, had gone on over 200 first dates without finding lasting connection, and had written a viral blog post about refusing to give up on finding his soulmate that had resonated with millions of people. Our next guest proves that hope and humor are the best strategies for navigating modern dating, Ellen announced to the enthusiastic studio audience. He's been on more first dates than most people have had hot dinners, but he hasn't given up on finding true love. His optimistic approach to romance is inspiring people everywhere to keep believing in happily ever after. Please welcome dating blogger and eternal optimist Marcus Thompson. The audience erupted in warm, encouraging applause as Marcus walked onto the stage with confident, charming energy. He was an attractive man with an easy smile and expressive eyes, wearing a well-fitted navy suit that suggested someone who put effort into his appearance without being vain about it. What struck Ellen most was the genuine warmth and openness in his demeanor, someone who wore his heart on his sleeve and approached life with generous enthusiasm. Marcus, welcome to the show, Ellen said warmly as they embraced with the easy affection of instant friendship. Thank you so much for having me, Ellen. This is literally a dream come true, Marcus replied, his voice carrying authentic excitement rather than nervous celebrity worship. Tell us about your epic dating journey. Over 200 first dates and still searching. Marcus laughed with good-natured self-deprecation as he settled into his chair. Ellen, I've become like the patron saint of first dates. I've had coffee dates, dinner dates, hiking dates, cooking class dates, escape room dates. You name it, I've probably tried it. What's been the most memorable dating disaster? Oh, that's easy, Marcus said with animated enthusiasm. I once had a date with a woman who brought her ex-boyfriend along because she wanted a second opinion. Turns out they were thinking about getting back together and wanted to use our date as couples therapy. Ellen and the audience burst into laughter at Marcus's delivery. Please tell me you left immediately. Actually, I stayed and helped them work through their issues, Marcus admitted with a sheepish grin. They're married now and send me Christmas cards. I apparently give excellent relationship advice for other people, just can't figure out my own love life. As Marcus spoke, Ellen noticed a woman in the third row of the audience who seemed to be listening with particular attention and delight. She was an attractive woman with long brown hair, wearing a beautiful emerald dress, and she was laughing at Marcus's stories with genuine appreciation rather than polite audience response. Marcus, what are you looking for in a partner? What's your ideal relationship? Marcus's expression became more serious and sincere. Ellen, I want someone who laughs at my terrible jokes, who gets excited about small adventures, who believes in being kind even when no one's watching. I want a best friend I'm also crazy about romantically. Ellen noticed that the woman in the emerald dress was nodding along with Marcus's description, as if she were mentally checking off boxes. Her engagement with his words seemed deeper than casual audience interest. Have you ever had that feeling where you meet someone and just know they're special? Once, Marcus said with obvious vulnerability. I met a woman at a bookstore about 6 months ago. We talked for 3 hours about everything and nothing. She was funny, intelligent, kind, everything I'd been looking for. But when I asked for her number, she said she was moving across the country for work. Ellen felt a strange intuition as she watched the woman in the emerald dress lean forward with sudden attention and what appeared to be recognition. Marcus, what did this woman look like? What was special about her? She had the most beautiful brown hair and these incredible green eyes, Marcus said with dreamy recollection. But it wasn't just her appearance. She had this way of really listening, like every word mattered, and she wore this emerald dress that perfectly matched her eyes. Ellen's heart started racing as she looked at the woman in the audience, who was now staring at Marcus with obvious shock and growing emotion. Marcus, I need to ask you something that might sound crazy. This woman from the bookstore, do you remember her name? Sarah, Marcus said immediately. Sarah Chen. I still think about that conversation sometimes and wonder what might have been if timing had been different. Ellen watched as the woman in the emerald dress, who was indeed wearing an emerald dress, brought her hands to her mouth in complete disbelief. Marcus, I want you to do something for me. I want you to look very carefully at our studio audience. Marcus looked confused but began scanning the crowd. When his eyes reached the third row and landed on the woman in the emerald dress, his face went completely white. Sarah, he whispered, his voice barely audible. Sarah stood up slowly, tears streaming down her face. Marcus? Oh my God, Marcus! Ellen felt her own eyes filling with tears as she witnessed this impossible reunion. Folks, I think we're about to witness something magical. Marcus, would you like to go talk to Sarah? Marcus nodded, speechless, and walked into the audience towards Sarah. When they reached each other, they embraced with the desperate intensity of people who thought they'd lost something precious forever. I can't believe you're here, Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. I thought you moved to Seattle. I did, Sarah replied, still holding on to him tightly. But the job fell through last month, so I moved back to LA. I've been thinking about you constantly, wondering if I made a terrible mistake. Ellen addressed the stunned and delighted audience. Ladies and gentlemen, we are witnessing what appears to be a real-life romantic miracle. Marcus has been searching for love, and love has literally found him in our studio audience. She called Marcus and Sarah back to the main stage. Sarah, how did you end up in our audience today? Sarah wiped tears from her eyes as she sat down next to Marcus, neither of them letting go of each other's hands. My sister won tickets and asked me to come with her. She said I needed to get out more and start dating again because I'd been moping about some guy I met in a bookstore. Marcus looked at Sarah with wonder. You were moping about me? For 6 months, Sarah admitted with a laugh. Marcus, that conversation we had was the best 3 hours I'd had with anyone in years. When I told you I was moving, I was hoping you'd ask me to stay. Ellen felt overwhelmed by the romantic perfection of what was unfolding. Marcus, you've been on 200 dates looking for someone like Sarah, and Sarah, you've been regretting walking away from Marcus. How does it feel to have a second chance? Like the universe conspired to fix my biggest mistake, Sarah said, looking into Marcus's eyes. Like all those failed dates were just preparation for this moment, Marcus replied. Ellen, I came here to talk about being single, and I might leave here having found my soulmate. Ellen made a spontaneous decision that felt both romantic and necessary. Sarah, Marcus has been telling our audience about his search for true love. Now that you're here, what would you want him to know? Sarah turned to face Marcus directly. I'd want you to know that walking away from you was the biggest regret of my life. I'd want you to know that I've compared every man I've met to you for 6 months, and none of them came close. Marcus looked like he was about to cry from happiness. Sarah, would you like to have that coffee date we never got to finish 6 months ago? I'd love nothing more, Sarah replied, then looked at Ellen with gratitude. Ellen, thank you for creating the space where miracles can happen. Ellen addressed the cameras with profound emotion. What we've witnessed today proves that sometimes the universe has plans that are bigger and more beautiful than anything we could orchestrate ourselves. She looked back at Marcus and Sarah with deep satisfaction. You two were meant to find each other again. The fact that it happened here in front of all these witnesses makes it even more special. Ellen made arrangements for Marcus and Sarah to have a proper reunion dinner, and 3 months later she received the news she had been hoping for. Marcus had proposed to Sarah, and they wanted to get married on the Ellen show. 6 months later, Ellen officiated the most-watched wedding in daytime television history. Marcus and Sarah's love story had captured the hearts of millions of viewers who had followed their relationship from that first impossible reunion through their engagement and marriage. "Marcus," Ellen said during the wedding episode, "how has your life changed since that day we found Sarah in the audience?" "Ellen, you gave me back the love of my life," Marcus replied, holding Sarah's hand as they stood at the altar. "That day taught me that sometimes when we stop looking so hard for something, it finds us exactly when we need it most." "And Sarah, what would you tell people who are afraid they've missed their chance at love?" "I'd tell them that real love always finds a way back to us," Sarah said, radiant in her wedding dress. "Marcus and I were meant to be together, and even though I walked away once, the universe made sure we found each other again." Ellen felt deeply moved by their continued love story. What your relationship teaches all of us is that timing isn't everything, connection is everything. You two recognized something special in each other, and that recognition survived months of separation. The wedding episode became a symbol of hope for single people everywhere, proving that love stories really do happen when we least expect them. What Marcus and Sarah taught us that day, Ellen reflected in later interviews, is that sometimes the person we're meant to be with is closer than we think. Sometimes they're sitting in our audience, sometimes they're in our daily lives, just waiting for the right moment of recognition. Their story inspired Ellen to create a regular segment called Love Connection, where she helped audience members and guests make romantic connections, resulting in dozens of successful relationships and several more weddings. Sometimes, Ellen would say when telling their story, the most beautiful love stories begin with someone giving up on love, only to discover that love never gave up on them. Marcus and Sarah remind us that the universe really does have a sense of timing and a sense of humor. Because sometimes the greatest love stories happen when we're not looking for them, and sometimes the person we're meant to spend our life with is sitting just a few rows away, waiting for destiny to introduce us at exactly the right moment.